People looking at you now and they don't know all you had to go through to get to that point where you at right now, where you got a good portion of your life under control. They don't know the nights that you spent praying and surrendering to God. Because the only way that you could really, really manage your life is by being in alignment with your spirit and knowing who the overall CEO of this material planet is, like the real big boss. And then you align yourself with his agenda. That way, whatever responsibilities that he gives to you, you carrying it out gracefully, knowing that you working really for him. They don't see the nights that you spent learning. They don't see the nights that you spent drinking coffee, staying up late, disciplined yourself. You had to work through the full 10-hour shift, the full 12-hour shift. And all of that was shaping you. Today we're going to be talking about self-governance. Why is it important? Is it even important when we can just allow the government to carry on with a lot of the governing responsibilities and duties, right? Should we have to feel the need to govern ourselves in any way? I recently discovered that Mr. Benjamin Franklin had to go through a whole lot to build himself. His name is well known today. But if you get to study his history, he did not receive no inheritance. He didn't become lucky and hit the lotto. This is a man that had to learn, that had to discipline himself. This is a man that had to undergo certain processes to be able to establish himself, to be able to come up on top. This is a man that when you really study his history, you get to see that self-governance has its rewards, because you're no longer outsourcing responsibility. And I mean things that you could take care of within yourself and in your environment. People probably looking at you, they seeing how calm and composed you are. They don't know the time that it took for you to build that type of character, that type of personality. It requires you to sit with yourself. It requires a certain amount of spiritual maturity, right? You got to realize that people are going to do what they want to do. Even if you tell them how to treat you, sometimes people would still intentionally disrespect you. So you realize that if people can do, or if people will do whatever they want to do, then you too, you have that in you to do what you know is for your own mental betterment, for your own peace of mind, without giving into the energy that they expecting. You mastered that. You realize that you could go within and gain some balance, control over impulses, control over certain thought processes, As soon as that thought pops up, you shut it down. You say, nah, not today. I'm not going to let that even go further. You shift. You realize that you can shift in thought and shift into different outcomes. Now you've aligned your thoughts, and it is showing in your life the order that is in your life. They probably were looking at you back then and saying that you were being too strict, right? But now, look at where you at with all of that discipline. Self-governance is very much close to self-regulation. You feel the internal emotions, but you don't let those emotions govern you. It's not to say that you don't get agitated. You do get agitated, but it is how you handle that feeling and what you do as you are processing that feeling internally that really matters. And like I said, you've had the time to sit with yourself, to listen to the internal feel. You've seen that self-governance has enabled you to live peacefully within yourself. You no longer see the need to want to control what you can't control, what's out of your control. You take care of what you could take care of. The body, that's where it starts. The mind, that's really where it starts. In thought, that's really where it starts. And you got to realize the importance of self-governance. We're living in those days where it is very, very important that we get to see how some of these kingdom principles would help us as we are journeying through, because the energy upon this planet is intense. And we know that those who benefit from us not self-governing ourselves, we know that they love it when their modes operate within our minds freely and we don't even know, we're not even conscious of it. It just runs on auto. But now you got your brother right here on the chosen's path, reminding you of some of these things that it might sound like it's out there. It might sound like it's difficult. We are not undermining or overlooking the importance of having a righteous external governing body. But we're also saying, for us to truly vote for righteous leaders who would reflect what we truly value from within, that means that we ourselves, we must first value certain core righteous principles that we've adopted, that we practice, right? The divine code that we live by within ourselves. We hold it dear to ourselves. And because we know the importance of holding it dear to our hearts, and we say we want anyone who is going to represent us, not rule us. We don't need rulers. We need people who would genuinely represent us. And once they get into office, they carry that title as a responsibility. That title doesn't make them supreme deity, right? But how do we get to that if we are not self-governing? How do we get to not allow ourselves get too stressful? How do we get to not fall prey to getting into unnecessary conflict? It's self-governance. Listening to our thoughts, listening to what we say. When we communicate, we can see people's reactions when we speak, when we give off bad energy. So when we catch onto all of that and we're processing, once we get given another chance, all of that should play back in the mind, and we should act different without having to absorb anything that would shift us from that posture that we know is meant to keep us mentally at peace. Cultivating habits. Just by you going to work consistently, that in itself is cultivating an internal posture of self-governance, right? That ties into discipline. You reading, you listening to podcasts, you having some type of routine gets you to shift into this upright posture that enables you to truly govern yourself. And when we talk about self-governance, we are not knocking God, the supreme, him being the one that truly governs this entire universe. We don't shift away his position or his role over our lives. We're saying that with awareness, with consciousness, we can now start to take more accountability, because self-governance comes down to accountability. So we can now start to take more accountability. We apologize when we are wrong. We do everything to correct our wrong. We create a community that acknowledges that humans are undergoing stages, developmental processes, and we provide solutions. Being understanding that the psychological realm, the mental realm, is very, very much different from this physical realm, and it is governed truly by words.